I was going to ask you, do you ever have to use Microsoft Teams at work?
I've recently heard about Microsoft Teams for the first time.
Recently lost your Microsoft Teams virginity.
But I've never used it. No, would that work on my machine? I've got the the Apple MacBook thing. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure it doesn't work on any machine, which is why it's so popular with its users, I think. But I reckon that's probably enough to deter alien invaders. If we told them you can come to this planet, but you have to use Microsoft Teams, that would be enough to keep the planet safe, I think.
Now that's like a peaceful defense. That's a much different thing than starting up some war of the worlds or something. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. You're listening to the Two Real Cinema Club with me, Andres Lorente.
And with me, James Rosica. Who knows what time of day you're listening to this? Every episode, we watch two movies. We watch a brand new movie, either out at the cinema or maybe on streaming. And then we compare it to an old movie that it has something in common with. Sometimes we learn something, sometimes we don't. And this week we have proudly watched what some people, and I say some people, I mean a lot of people, are calling the worst film of all time. We have watched it, so you, dear listener, don't have to. We have watched the brand new War of the Worlds. If you thought the idea of a Netflix original is bad enough, we found a new phrase to strike fear into the heart of all cinema goers: an Amazon Prime original. This is an Amazon Prime original, a new take on the Victorian alien invasion story, and we are comparing it to a film from only 20 years ago, but which sort of feels to me like it comes from a very different world to the world of 2025. We're comparing it to the Spielberg version of War of the Worlds from 2005.
I think that this release on Amazon was strategic.
You mean it was they released it to fulfill some kind of contractual obligation rather than because everyone was so proud of the film?
No, I think they are preparing us for the Melania Trump documentary. So they're gonna release a lot of below A grade films right now, and then we'll see the Melania thing and we'll think, oh, this is a great film. Melania, what an important documentary.
So the Melania film is it's not like an expose. It's a hagiography.
I'm sure it is. Of course it is. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm not going to watch it, but
don't know what it's going to be, and I have no intention of finding out.
Just making assumptions. Yeah.
Well. So currently scoring, I think, something like 0% or maybe 4% on Rotten Tomatoes. No. I mean, you have to work really hard to be rated that.
Wow.
War of the Worlds. Well, it certainly seems to have got plenty of online chatter. We watched it online on Amazon Prime, and it was the 5th most popular movie on the service that day.
Wow.
It's in their top 10. It's proudly sitting at number 5.
Yeah, some people watch. I mean, some of the algorithms just take you to it, right? And if you see the first couple minutes, then people probably still watch it, or they leave it running while they're doing something else. I don't know. I wouldn't have found it. I hadn't heard about it, but we should tell the listeners it's sometimes difficult to find a couple of films when there's nothing too appetizing in the theaters, but I think our go-to now is just to find two films with the same title and then just watch them. Because that's easy for us.
That's easy.
Especially in the summer.
Seriously, you go to Google, you just type anything, and you pick the 2 top results. That's it. So, War of the Worlds, directed by Rich Lee. So this is his first feature. He has previously made music videos for Eminem, a bunch of people. He has directed a couple of TV episodes. It is written by Kenny Gold, who I have not heard of. He directed a film called The Job, which I haven't seen. He wrote a film called Walking with the Enemy, which I have not seen. And it's written by Mark Hyman, who is like a prodigious Hollywood rewrite guy. He did rewrites on How to Train Your Dragon, Madagascar 3, which is actually a pretty good Madagascar film, Dodgeball, Freaky Friday, which I think is, a pretty good value comedy. So he's a funny guy who's done funny work before. So it's not entirely divorced from people who have a reasonable track record. But the film, as far as I can tell, am I right, was made like during the pandemic.
Oh, possibly. That would be 5 years ago, though. 4 or 5 years.
I think I read that it was shot between, it was like kind of like sort of early 2021, something like that.
Oh.
And I mean, it really, really looks like, once you learn that, it really looks like a pandemic film.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, spoilers, pretty much every character is talking into a webcam in this film. And I presume that if you were working in the film industry and you couldn't leave the house and you couldn't go to the set, well, this is a way to get some work, to make a feature film. And, you know, and I think it's kind of, you know, not an entirely uninteresting idea. Whether the end result is successful or not, it may be revealed in the fact that they've made this film 5 years ago and only released it this week. Yeah. So that may tell you something about how pleased they were with what came out.
Yeah, it makes sense now that you've said that. I had no idea. I just was wondering, why am I watching this film? But it does make sense. I mean, as we'll find out, a lot of it takes place in a cubicle and, as you said, on TV, screens. But the technology for 5 years ago, it seems like they anticipated some technology, and it looks like it's fresh, I guess.
You know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago was a very long time ago. 5 years ago kind of was not. I don't know. Do you, when you said that makes sense, for a moment there I thought you were talking about the film rather than the way that the film was shot. But of course, you're not talking about the film because it really doesn't make sense. But in order to prove that it doesn't make sense, do you fancy telling us the story of 2025's War of the Worlds?
I'll tell you some of the story. Yes.
Okay.
My synopsis is brief, and then I realized, boy, there's not much to say after the synopsis. So we're saving listeners a lot of time here, both in our analysis of the film as well as the film itself. Sure. Okay. Is there music or something like that? Do I have to wait for music to something happen?
Oh yeah. I'll start the music any moment now.
All right.
And the music's coming up.
Excellent. Oh, thank you.
Now.
We open by watching Ice Cube's William Radford, surveillance superdad, or is he watching us? On his supercomputer array in his brain center, Washington, D.C. cubicle. Herein lies the majority of the story world. He monitors the activities of the Disruptor, a super hacker trying to update the American people on the National Security Department's surveillance of citizens of the United States and perhaps the world. However, odd weather phenomena are plaguing Americans and other desperate housewives everywhere. But Ava Longoria's NASA scientist Sandra Salas is on the scene everywhere and reporting data back to Radford in D.C., whose side hustle is closely monitoring his pregnant daughter and rebellious son on the same technology on which he looks for bad actors. Speaking of bad actors, monitor the entire cast, Mr. Ice. Radford's overprotective since his wife has died, and she left a final message on Facebook. I guess we had Facebook back in 2020.
I think we had too much Facebook back in 2020.
Is that before it was Meta? I guess we still call it Facebook. She left this message that he should be looking after the kids and protecting them and whatnot. And I believe, more importantly, didn't she say pick up the dry cleaning or the laundry or something like that? It was
something like that.
Classic spousal message. White hot in pursuit of the Disruptor, Radford is sidetracked by attacks from all over the world by creatures that emerge from boulder-sized eggs, but they transform into these giant ambulatory mushroom robot killers. What can Radford do to save the world from his tech nest in D.C.? Can he find the Disruptor? And how far must he search to find them? Is the Disruptor a bad them or a good them? will Radford make a desperate third act exit from his cubicle in order to take action and no longer be a non-player character, or NPC, as the kids say. Yeah. I hope that sets it up. I mean, when you're watching this film, it's Ice Cube on a computer.
It is.
And looking at stuff.
Barely even. I mean, this is a movie of Ice Cube looking at things. That's one of my top comments in my list here. This is the movie of Ice Cube looking at things. And that's kind of it. The whole movie is just Ice Cube's desktop, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we zoom into little bits of his desktop, but that is the entire film.
I gotta say, he's very good with the technology, too. So it's not that he's bad with the technology. I mean, it would be all right, it's already a bad film. It would be a very bad film if he was having problems opening programs, or it was buffering or something like that constantly, or he just clicked on the wrong window. But he's on his computer a lot.
He is on his computer a lot, and we are on his computer. I mean, the movie opens with the boot up of Windows, doesn't it? There is a lot of product placement in this film.
Oh goodness, is there ever?
And Windows is just like, the beginning of it. It's all kind of, it's a lot of highlight of Microsoft technology.
Yeah,
there is quite a lot of highlight of Meta technology.
Yes,
but there is more than that, isn't there? It's like an advert for Tesla about sort of 20 or 30 minutes into the movie. And then towards the end, we have like a great long advert for Amazon and Amazon Prime. I mean, it's astonishingly branded, so much so that I was just guffawing. This film is bad, and I think it'd be interesting to discuss why it's bad and what is bad about it. Yeah. But in all honesty, it did give me one of the biggest laughs I've had all year. I was guffawing uncontrollably at a moment about 20 minutes from the end of the film. So I certainly had some entertainment out of it.
But for the wrong reasons.
Whether that is what the filmmakers intended is another question.
Exactly, yeah. CNN had plugs in there. Fox News. I mean, it's produced by Amazon, or they bought it. I don't know exactly the history of it, but there's a lot of Amazon and Prime specifically.
There's an incredible amount of Amazon stuff. Should we ring the spoiler bell?
This film spoils itself.
Because I mean, there are a number of plot twists and supposed surprises in this film, which is part of what makes it bad, I think. But we should ring the spoiler bell so that we can talk freely about these many, many offensive bad moments. Right, okay, there's the bell. Spoiled. One of my top comments that I've written in my notebook here is that I feel genuinely sorry for everyone involved in the making of this film. Many of the actors kind of look a little bit embarrassed. Some of the actors are we talk about people phoning it in. Some of the actors are literally phoning it in.
Yeah.
Michael O'Neill plays the Secretary of Defense, and he FaceTimes his performance from his car and from the golf course, smoking a cigar. And he's absolutely, literally phoning it in.
Yeah.
Incredible. Eva Longoria. I'm going to ask you now, is it Ava Longoria, not Eva Longoria? Have I been pronouncing her name wrong all these years?
Yeah, it should be Ava, but I think we know her as Eva. But Ava.
It is Ava, is it? Oh man, no wonder she doesn't return my calls. But she cannot keep a straight face during some scenes. There is a scene where she is pretending to climb over some rubble where one of these boulders has landed in a city, and there's just like this smirk on her face that she can't quite control. Ice Cube. I gotta ask, how does Ice Cube feel about his name these days? So I saw him live back in, must have been like the late 90s. Yeah. I am Ice Cube apparently is worth $160 million these days, and I am partly responsible for his personal fortune. Nice. I bought the tapes. Yeah. I went to the concerts.
Oh, good.
And Ice Cube feels like a little bit of the 20th and 21st century cultural fabric. Yeah. It feels like a little bit of a national hero. Yeah. My understanding is that he is a bit MAGA these days, I think.
Oh, God.
So he might be someone whose opinions about things are a bit different to my own. Mm-hmm. But as a rapper, made some really terrific records. And back when he was young. But he chose the name Ice Cube when he was like 17.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, he was in, like, a rap group called CIA before they then became NWA, and then before he went on and like recorded his solo album, like at the age of 19, something like that. I mean, he was very young when he chose the name Ice Cube.
Yeah.
And yet now, you know, he's got a long career, not just as a musician, not just as a personality, but as an actor, as a business person, I'm sure. And yet still he's had to stick with this Ice Cube moniker that he chose when he was 17. No one knows him as O'Shea Jackson. If Ice Cube ran for president, he would have to put Ice Cube on the ballot because no one's going to vote for O'Shea Jackson because no one knows who that is. We'd have to have President Cube. I don't know how he feels about it. But poor Ice Cube doesn't look like he's given a great deal of direction except just to look astonished at stuff that he is seeing on screen. And then say, damn, like about 200 times. That is a good third of all of his dialogue is just Ice Cube saying, damn. Apart from one line later on where he says, this is terrible. And I can imagine having to read that in the script and thinking, okay, just think of the check. Ice, just think of the
Maybe
check.
he was saying that about the film as he was making.
Someone pointed out that if you watch the trailer for this movie on YouTube, there are little intertitles that say something like, you know, the aliens are arriving. You know, we are watching it unfolding. And one of the intertitles is "It's worse than you think," and that is kind of like the log line for the whole movie. Actually,
that would be great on the poster. Oh man, that would sell.
War of the Worlds. It's worse than you think. Poor Cube. I mean, all the acting he does is put into this webcam, apart from one moment. He gets like most emotional. The most emotional moment in the movie is not necessarily when his daughter is injured or when we think, oh, is the baby going to come early or is human civilization going to end? No, the moment when he gets most emotional is when someone turns off the router and he loses his internet access.
Oh, yeah.
And at that point, he is so emotional that he knocks over a chair. That is the extent of the acting that he is allowed to do in this film. Oh, poor Cube. Think of the money. That's what I say.
Yes, well, I hope he made some money. I mean, I imagine he wouldn't be allowed to use his real name for this film because it's basically it's part of the advertising, I suppose, is that it's got Ice Cube in it. I mean,
yes.
He's the protagonist. It's his film. So if he went as O'Shea Jackson, they would never sell any.
It does look like a little bit like one of those films that Nicolas Cage would have done when he was very heavily in debt, or John Travolta when they were, hadn't they lost all their money to Bernie Madoff?
Oh, really?
Possibly. I'm not swearing that is the truth.
There you go.
This may well be incorrect.
That's the character motivation for you.
But I think both of them made a lot of questionable artistic decisions because they just need a lot of money fast. And this movie looks a little bit like Ice Cube and Ava Longoria have got into some debts and just needed to churn out anything for a check, please. Can you send the check quick?
Do you think this film was made for theatrical release?
Oh, surely not.
Because they couldn't have been paid that much, I don't think. This is not going to get rid of debt.
I guess not. I'm guessing that. I mean, judging from the sheer volume of product placement, especially towards the later end of the film, this surely is an Amazon original, which was, led by Amazon right from the start.
Yeah.
There is so much Amazon promotion in the movie that I find it difficult to imagine that they were not steering it right from the script stage.
I have to say that with our subscription, occasionally we have to watch advertisements, and there were I think 2 moments where the film had to stop for advertisements, and I barely noticed. I mean, it was just okay. There's another Amazon ad. Wait a second, I thought I was watching an Amazon ad.
So the part that made me guffaw out loud is a little bit later on in the movie. So Cube's daughter's partner or husband or whatever is an Amazon delivery driver.
Convenient,
and Ice Cube needs to put a computer virus onto a USB stick so that he can put it into the server room to thwart the alien invasion. And he's explaining how this is the NSA. They don't allow USB memory drives in here. And then the son-in-law pipes up, but I can Amazon Prime it to you. And it's Prime Air. And then he explains how Amazon have got these delivery drones and they've been training us for months. And then he says something like, you just have to place an official order on the Amazon site. And then we get a full page Amazon shop front where Ice Cube is clicking on the USB drive that he wants, and then we see him click on go to basket, and he pays for the USB drive, and then the son-in-law loads it into. I mean, he has to load it into the Prime Air drone, and then we follow the Prime Air drone as it flies around Washington DC to get to Ice Cube. Unbelievable. And at one point, this is like the dramatic moment that the drone is knocked out by the alien invaders, and it's landed upside down. But they managed to locate like a homeless guy using surveillance cameras. And they persuade the homeless guy to flip the drone over, even though he is terribly frightened. Yeah. And the only way they can persuade him to flip the drone over is by bribing him with an Amazon gift card. Because that's what's worth risking your life for. I mean, I could barely control myself. This was hilarious.
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful. It's funny because to a certain extent. I mean, I noticed it. I'm sure most people noticed it, but it's almost indistinguishable from our everyday lives and being on a computer and ordering something on Amazon. So it seems perfectly natural. But to go into that kind of detail is just so self-serving. It's disgusting, but it's funny. It's shamelessly funny.
Like in a parallel universe, this movie is sort of Cloverfield. Have you seen that?
Parts of it a long time ago. I don't think I watched the whole film.
So I think that's from 2007, something like that, and that's part of that found footage genre, which was like super big for a few years. Yep. And I think that's a fairly successful found footage movie about an alien invasion. Yeah. And this setup is not. It's not impossible to turn this into an entertaining, good movie. This could be an interesting idea. What this movie is trying to be, I think, is a 21st century version of the Orson Welles version of War of the Worlds, where they told the story of the alien invasion through contemporary style sources in 1936, something like that. Mm-hmm. And it was using fake news reports and fake bulletins. And we interrupt this program to bring you news of. And supposedly that was the first time that this had really been done on the radio, and it was quite shocking and exciting. And this is a similar idea, telling the same story, War of the Worlds, only using Twitter and online news and Facebook, and it's using our contemporary media as a way of telling a story. I think it's a cute, clever idea which could have been entertaining, and the idea of making a movie out of watching somebody's desktop has been done before. I think there are a couple of movies that have done this before, aren't there? Is it Searching? What's it called? So it's possible to do, but this film, it's an enormous artistic failure, and it might be interesting to analyse. We can all identify what a bad film is, but it's interesting to analyse why something is bad.
Well, we can do that. This film's giving us fodder for that analysis. It's an interesting material to begin with. It's an H.G. Wells story. Originally, then an Orson Welles radio broadcast. And then for those two media, you have to use your imagination to picture the monsters and picture what's happening, and the source materials are literate, right? When you get to this, we'll talk about the Tom Cruise bit, the Spielberg bit, of course, but when you get to by this point, this is I don't know if it's the most recent iteration or not, but it's ironic that we live in this much more visual society. This is a very visual film because he's looking at footage. He's got access to all these different angles. We're seeing Ava Longoria in the field. We're seeing the kids running around on the street. So we've got all these angles. It's very visual, and I think it makes it less interesting. There's less imagination on the part of the viewer to engage with. So it's just kind of put it out there for you. And I think all the advertisement just cheapens it as well. And another irony is that the story world is tiny, right? It's mostly in his cubicle. As we said, it's on his computer. But all of the characters are basically family, and they have these, and this is just lazy, they all have these specific skills that make the whole story happen, right? Like the son happens to be, spoiler alert, he's the disruptor, he's the hacker who's trying to warn the world about what the Department of Security or National Security is doing in the Goliath project, which is this massive surveillance thing. The daughter, I can't really explain. I think it's some sort of bioengineering where she's able to put technology into like living bodies or mechanical bodies, and they can create this virus to sort of destroy the mushrooms, the big mushrooms. I call them big mushrooms. I don't know. And you can see the big mushrooms. And in these films, I think, and we'll talk about this probably later, I think if you show the monster too much, it starts to lose its power. And I thought that the way that the monsters are sort of destroyed in this film, even though we know even less about them in this film than we know in other incarnations of the material, but I felt that they had something there. Like, that was kind of interesting, the way that they worked together as a team. But the contrivances are just unacceptable. And then, yeah, as you said, the boyfriend or husband is a Amazon Prime driver, and he mentions it all the time, or he's in his uniform all the time, or he's using his Prime driver skills as a heroic action. The story world is tiny. It's really just those characters, and that it makes sense as a COVID film, but it's not an excuse to have your story world be that tiny. So I don't think this ever aspires to be cinema, but ironically, it just doesn't do as good a job as Orson Welles would have done on the radio, or H.G. Wells' story is in its original form. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, to tell you what, I mean, you're explaining there that, you know, the value of imagination reminded me of The Vast of Night. I don't know if you've seen that. It was like a really, really low budget alien invasion movie from about 10 years ago, something like that. We talked about it once on the pod, I think. It has this absolutely fantastic standout scene, which is a 15-minute single take of this young woman who is a telephone operator in this small 1950s town. And she is taking calls from people who've seen strange lights in the sky, and then trying to get them through to the police or something like that. And just watching her talk to people over the phone and patch people through to who they need to speak to. And then she's picking up this kind of strange interference on the line. It's just 15 minutes. You know, it's visually super, super simple. It all relies on, you know, great acting and great writing, and it's just dynamite. It's a great scene. It's, you know, very easy to forget that the camera has not moved for 15 minutes because it absolutely draws you in. That is harnessing the power of the imagination of the audience. You know, that is probably about the closest parallel I can think of to this movie. That really works. The Vast of Night, you know, it's not a perfect movie, and, you know, they can't quite stick the landing, but there is some great filmmaking in that. Really, really dynamic. Just outstanding. Whereas with this, you know, they've kind of utterly fluffed it. I was trying to write a list of, you know, exactly why is it so bad, because I must say, in the first minute or so, you know, I was enjoying the song that Cube was playing, you know, as he was booting up his computer, and like most people, find Ice Cube quite personable and watchable, and I was kind of enjoying the first 2 or 3 minutes of the movie. And it was, you know, only once we started getting into the story that I started to realise, you know, this movie has a bit of a strange attitude towards surveillance and can't quite make up its mind. And so it becomes difficult to sympathise with or enjoy the company of characters who seem to be so abhorrent. But also, there's this big problem with authenticity in this film. This is one of the screenwritery things that we always kind of talk about, but authenticity is so important. It just feels utterly inauthentic. At no point did I really believe that Ice Cube was a real NSA operative in a real NSA building doing real NSA work. It never really convinces me. You know, he's in this kind of weird sort of empty office with a bunch of empty desks behind him, and it's not entirely clear, is this the weekend, or, you know, does he really operate in his own office completely on his own? He seems to be like the only surveillance operative in the world. He speaks directly to the president and the Secretary of Defense, and he's got this buddy in NASA who phones him up about weather. I mean, what's that got to do with the NSA? So at no point do they allow it to become believable, and it really feels like, you know, that authenticity is what lets it down right from the beginning. But once you've got over the inauthenticity of it, it has, you know, this other problem, which you just alluded to, which is small world, isn't it? Absolutely everybody in the movie is integral to Earth's defense from the aliens, even though it's just like 3 random people, a surveillance guy, an Amazon Prime driver and a woman who researches DNA or whatever. Plus the son who is playing video games but turns out to be the hacker that Ice Cube is looking for. Absolutely everybody actually is completely fundamental to saving the aliens, and virtually no other humans have anything to do with it. So it's authenticity. It's the small world. It is logic. Very little of what happens really feels properly logical. I don't really understand why the aliens have come to Earth to extract our shopping data. None of that really kind of makes any sense, and no one offers a very cogent argument about why it makes sense, or the fact that the government knew that aliens from another planet were probably going to come and siphon off our shopping data, but still built the system anyway. I mean, it just doesn't lend itself to. You have to, if you think about it for more than 5 seconds, it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense at all.
And then the final thing I've written in my list of why it is so bad is proportionality. The film doesn't really understand what's important and what's not. It's like the fact that Cube has a meltdown because his router is turned off, and yet watching millions of refugees be incinerated and blown up. It all just seems to kind of elicit a bit of a his biggest emotional reaction is, this is terrible. And then he loses internet access and he's kicking over a chair. This is a disaster.
That's really terrible.
Yeah, exactly. It just seems kind of, I don't really understand what's supposed to be motivating people here then. If you're watching the world disintegrate, but you're also making sure that you turn on the air conditioning in the remote controlled Tesla, which you have stolen for your daughter.
That's right,
I would, please get a sense of proportion. And once you've lost that, then it becomes very difficult to have any faith in any of the decisions or any of the plot points. It's just the movie kind of treats you like it really believes that you are stupid. Or maybe it's just that it's kind of typed out at random and nobody went back and reread what they'd written before they decided to shoot it.
Yeah, you're at the opening when you said phoned in. I think that's exactly what this film is. It's just not very well thought out at all. And it's interesting because you do have an accomplished writer or rewriter in there. Haven't heard anything about Richard Lee as a director, but it's all about videos. He's done like Eminem videos, Black Eyed Peas videos, and some. Unsurprisingly, some visual effects work. So it's obviously catered to a certain crowd, but also by someone who's really used to working with graphics and music videos, as opposed to telling a story. So I mean, if you're a director and you get this script, you've got to think, well, what, why, why? I mean, and there is kind of a why now moment in the sense that this. Although I don't think we're going to be attacked by aliens anytime too soon. Maybe I'm naive, but the whole surveillance issue is quite interesting, and I'm going to suggest that there's a nice theme in here that was not explored at all. But I think there's this irony of this film is all about paying attention, but it's about really not quality attention. And I think the adverts and the distractions really play into that as well. The heart of the story, the emotional story, is supposed to be the fact that he is overprotective of his kids, but he's not really paying attention to their lives very much. He's just seeing what they're doing. He's just monitoring them without really paying attention and asking about how they're doing or whatnot, to the point where he doesn't get invited to the baby shower that I don't know if we've mentioned, his daughter was pregnant and she got injured, and he saves her and the baby by using a Tesla. As a matter of fact, he gets remote access to his Tesla. But there's this. I think attention is a commodity right now, and I think this could be an interesting film. It's I think it does. It's not sure if it wants to be about aliens invading or about the whole surveillance industry, and I think it just makes a mash of everything. But I think there is something there that the quality of the attention that we pay. It's just diluted and it's poor quality. And I think it is about the attention economy on a certain level. And, I don't think most viewers are going to see that, but I think it's a nice theme that could have been explored more or, could be a different film, obviously.
That is good. Even a bad film, you have watched closely and intelligently.
You can dig some stuff out, but it does feel like a video game. It's, it's super techie filmmaking and... again, from a director who, has done that. I think that's probably the forte. So,
it's interesting that you say that he's got a background in visual effects, because I think the visual effects are pretty terrible in this film.
Yeah.
And I hate criticizing films for this because, I don't think it's a super important part of the the storytelling. And some of my favourite visual effects are things like the original King Kong.
Yeah.
Which I still think looks absolutely astonishing. And at no point do you not think that it's a model, but it's just beautiful and visceral.
Yeah, exactly.
So, effects don't have to be seamless and entirely convincing to be effective as a storytelling medium. But one of the comments I wrote in my margin here is that this looks like a Sega CD game from 1997. I mean, it's kind of this kind of weird pixely graphics. Which doesn't which you don't look as good as the graphics from the 2005 film that we watched this week as well.
Yeah.
It's for somebody whose background seems to be in computery type stuff.
Yeah.
I thought it was surprisingly ineffective.
Yeah. And I think it doesn't help that the effects are under a microscope here, because it carries the film to a certain extent. I mean, everything is about effects. So, oof.
I have got one question which I don't understand, which may be absolutely obvious to you, but certainly is not to me, which is that at the very end of the movie, Briggs, who is like I think he's the NSA director, he is arrested, and it says he's arrested for violating the First and Fourth Amendments. I don't really know what those are. Do most people in the audience know what the First and Fourth Amendments to the U.S. Constitution are?
Definitely not.
Okay, fine. Okay. I'm not following the news super closely, but I do feel like violating amendments to the Constitution seems to be quite a trendy thing at the moment.
Yes, I don't think. Yeah, those two don't exist any longer, so I don't think we have to even talk about it.
Yes. Yeah, we'll just delete those amendments from the White House website, and people won't ask about it ever again.
I have one question for you.
Oh, yes.
Would this film be better, or what would this film be like if Tom Hanks were cast as the Radford character?
I mean, I honestly think a nuanced actor and a better script could have turned in something quite interesting with this. There's no reason why this could not have been an interesting project. But, unfortunately, it's... like you're saying, they've paid attention to the wrong things.
Yeah.
Maybe haven't paid attention to very much at all. Tom Hanks, where are you? We need you. I got one other thing to say, which is just apart from saying that I came to the end of this movie and I thought, God, well, this wasn't really a science fiction film. This was a horror film, but it was a horror film about the horror of total surveillance. Yeah. Because that's kind of the world that we live in. It does feel a lot like a 2020 movie to me, not just because everyone communicates through WhatsApp and a webcam and FaceTime rather than face-to-face. But also because clearly this was made in a year when Biden was president, because the stand-in president they have, who appears on screen fairly briefly, seems a lot like Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And yet, just a few years after this film was shot, it already somehow kind of feels like a film out of time. I don't know. At the end of when we watched it, Rachel pointed out no one uses Facebook anymore. Yeah. Why are they getting so upset about Facebook?
Yeah, precisely.
It just feels like historical now. Even something which is attempting to be bleeding edge and contemporary has in fact left itself open to becoming dated very, very quickly because of how it looks at the world.
That's the danger of being or attempting to be too contemporary in any film or any project. You've opened up this sort of indefensible weakness or vulnerability, and it's an odd film. I didn't know anything about the timeline. I assumed it was just made recently, but it makes sense. It was a COVID era film and not a very good one. I think maybe our standards were lower during COVID.
or maybe there's a reason why it took them 5 years to finally
definitely
get it out. If the aliens do invade, certainly the aliens from this film, I think the military may be bad, the bombers may be a danger, but who they should really be frightened of is the Cliche Squad.
Absolutely.
Cliche Squad.
I feel like the Cliche Squad should be an entire podcast for this film.
It should be. In general, those guys should branch off and do their own thing, because thank you for your service, Cliche Squad, and I feel like I'm in good hands with them.
Some of the cliches I wrote down, I've written at the top of my list of cliches, product placement is the new normal.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of product placement recently, and it's going to become more and more prevalent, I guess. Although, there was product placement in the old... In the 1978 Superman that we watched the other week. It's not a particularly new thing, but my goodness, it's prevalent in this.
Yeah.
but also, overprotective dad.
Yeah.
Incompetent son-in-law who then becomes good in the third act.
Yeah.
Pregnant woman who needs protecting.
Yeah.
And my favorite one is, the real enemy was someone that you knew all along. Like that sort of Scooby-Doo moment of taking off the mask, and it turns out, wow, it was this guy. And because they love that cliche so much, they do it twice, don't they? Because they reveal that the son is the disruptor, and then they reveal that Briggs is like the guy behind Goliath.
Yeah.
Like they enjoy that plot point so much they had to write it in twice in the same 90-minute script.
And that both of those stem from just putting yourself in such a tiny story world to begin with. So that's why they're in there. Boy, you basically read all of mine. The only other ones I had were, and you've alluded to it, like this parent-child strife that is just, it's over the top. It's hammered into you from the very beginning. And it's a cliche. I sort of wrote down, and I've shorthanded it to going native, which is probably not the right way to describe it, but Radford goes over to the hacker's side pretty quickly. And you were talking about moments that are underplayed. Like within one moment, he realizes his son is the disruptor. He's mad at him, of course, at first, wants to ground him or something like that. But then his realization comes very quickly that, I'm on the wrong side, and I've got to go join the resistance. And it happens pretty fast. It's not a big moment, and it should be a big moment in the film. But and then he basically becomes the resistance because the machines start picking off all the other kids in the disruptor circle. So that would be that's kind of just joining the enemy, I guess, joining the resistance, joining the enemy is kind of a cliche here as well. It's just, and they just don't have a lot of resources ultimately in this film to make more interesting or original plot points.
You know what I think? If this film had been made with no-name actors and someone told you, we made this for $2,000.
Yeah.
Everyone will be saying, wow, that's amazing. Yeah. That's incredible. You've done like a whole 90-minute film. You've just done it with webcams. What a really clever, innovative idea.
Yeah.
And people would overlook the terrible writing and the terrible acting.
Yeah.
Because it is like an interesting idea, and it is an accomplishment to have made it. The fact that it features name actors and has Amazon written all over it. It has Jeff Bezos's greasy fingers all over the screen. Means that immediately disarms it of any charm or interest that it could offer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It feels like instead of being what a clever thing you've done with so little money, it becomes you guys should have known better.
Exactly. Like if your kid and friends made this film in bedrooms, it'd be fantastic, right? You'd think, oh wow, you guys this is a great starter film. You guys have got something, but your dialogue is really weak and your story's kind of thin. But we'd expect that from teenagers.
Yeah,
that's what this film is, basically, by adults and professionals and name actors who put their names on it. It's out there.
Well, I would say, it did give me one of the biggest laughs I've had all year. So it wasn't all bad. It was literally side holding. I mean, just guffawing. I don't know what they thought upstairs while we were watching it downstairs.
It was all bad, but even all bad can make you happy sometimes. It can give you a few laughs.
I've never a more profound thing have I heard. Yes, sometimes all bad is just what you need. Let's have a break. We'll calm down. I will massage my aching sides, and then we will come back and we will talk about the other film called War of the Worlds.
Welcome back, everyone. We're going to talk about War of the Worlds now. Wait a second.
A second.
I think we just talked about that film, didn't we, James?
I think we talked about that rather more than it deserved. We're going to talk about this is the joy of making a film out of literary works that are out of copyright. You can just do it as many times as you like, and you don't owe anyone a penny.
Yeah.
This is the 2005 version of War of the Worlds. So there'd been like a bunch of different versions. I think this is the most recent big screen version before the version for Amazon Prime that we have just watched. directed by Steven Spielberg. This is a sort of mid-late period Steven Spielberg film. And I think, spoilers ahead, I think a little bit of an underrated minor modern classic. I think this is a good picture. Not perfect, but actually a bit of an achievement. Had you seen it before?
No. This was my first time, so I came to it with fresh eyes.
I remember seeing the trailer for this, back in 2005, and it being a very exciting trailer that uses no footage whatsoever from the movie. I think the trailer is just an average family. They'd like putting the trash out or something like that of an evening, and they can hear the sounds of the invaders arriving, and they can see lights on the horizon, and that's all you get. And then you get Spielberg Cruise War of the Worlds, and that was like the teaser trailer. Really good trailer, a lot of anticipation. But maybe you'd be curious to know, out of all the films that we could have chosen to compare the 2025 version, why did we choose this one?
Do you have any other questions for me, Counsel?
I think because they have the same title. Isn't it? And it was like a 20th year anniversary. It's 20 years exactly since this film.
These are not the only two films to be called War of the Worlds. There's like a George Powell version from 1953. Have you seen that one?
No, not at all.
That was on TV a lot when I was a boy. I watched it many times as a boy, and really loved it. But this was when the technology was not up to animating tripods on screen.
Yeah.
So the aliens arrive in little flying saucers.
Oh.
And maybe I'll talk later about. I think there are a few nods to that George Powell version, in the 2005 movie. And then there was the Jeff Wayne album, War of the Worlds. Did you ever listen to that?
God, no, absolutely not. Haven't heard of it.
just like 1978 again. That was a big double album. I listened to that a lot as a boy, and I listened to it. I loved looking at the pictures while listening to the songs. There is even in London a 3D interactive version of the Jeff Wayne War of the Worlds musical. That you can go. We put on these kind of 3D headsets, and they reproduce some of the scenes like in 3D. There's been like an acclaimed television version, which I have not seen, of War of the Worlds. I mean, so there's been lots and lots of versions of this story. It's out of copyright now, and people will make more, I'm sure. Yeah. But I think this one is a minor classic. I wanted to go back to it. I know because I've bored you in the past about my theory about the third act for this film as well. So I wanted an excuse to go and watch it again and see whether my theory about the third act for this film holds up.
Oh.
I do know a little bit of the background. So Tom Cruise and Steven Spielberg had a hit with Minority Report in 2002. I haven't seen that since it was originally out. People used to joke about this amazing computer interface in the Minority Report. And then 5 years later on, that same computer interface you could buy in a shop on the iPhone. Yeah. So the future was coming down the pipe quick. So this is a chance for them to work together again 3 years after that. It's Spielberg's third alien invasion film, because he made Close Encounters and he made E.T., so he was already familiar with the landscape. Apparently he asked J.J. Abrams to write the script, but he demurred because he had to work on the Lost pilot. Spielberg wanted to shoot it after Munich, which we watched a few months ago.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise convinced him to do it first, I think, because of scheduling. Budget $132 million. This film made $603 million worldwide. It was the fourth biggest film of 2005. Do you know what the biggest film of 2005 was? Have a guess.
2005.
I bet you might be disappointed.
Yeah, go ahead. I can't guess.
It was Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Made nearly $900 million, I think, that year.
Wow.
That was the biggest film of 2005.
The one I liked was The Prisoner of Azkaban. I think that was it.
Yeah, I have not seen any of those Harry Potter films.
Good for you. Oh, my God.
Yeah, just passed me by somehow. I think it just came at exactly the wrong time. So, Tom Cruise, Dakota Fanning, Tim Robbins, shall I tell you the story?
Honestly, I just watched it, so you could tell the TRCC family the story.
So we open with a webcam. No, we don't. It's 2005, and now I'm pretty sure you might have to correct me on this. New York, isn't it? Is that right? Is it Brooklyn or New Jersey?
It's I think it's New York. It's probably
New York.
think they live on Staten Island. It looked like
Staten, okay, right.
But
It's one of those things which is probably obvious to locals and completely lost on me. So Tom Cruise plays Ray Ferrier. He is a crane operator at the Brooklyn docks, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
Are
probably.
there Brooklyn docks or New York docks, something like that? He's looking after his teenage son, Robbie, his 10-year-old daughter, Rachel, for the weekend, when electric storms herald the arrival of giant robot invaders from space. So Tom is the only family with a working car in a 20-mile radius. So he and the kids start heading towards Boston in the hope of finding his ex-wife and safety. But the invasion follows them, as first the wife's house and then the rest of New England is flattened by 50-metre-high tripods. So can Tom, or Ray, I suppose, hold on to his kids and get them to safety? Can the human race do anything to strike back in the face of enormous technological advantage? And how long can Steven Spielberg keep control of this material?
Ooh, that's like you went meta there at the end, and I
did go a
Facebook
bit meta,
but you did go meta. Oh, nice.
Next, I'll be uploading pictures of my desktop. Yes. So this is I think is sort of fairly classic mid to late period Spielberg, and I think there's an awful lot to enjoy. But I don't think the critics were super kind to this film, and I think a lot of it was weaknesses to do with the third act. So first time you've seen it, I had seen it at least 1.5 times before. Did you enjoy it or not?
I will confess, I'm not a big Spielberg fan in general. He's a competent filmmaker. I think when we talked about Munich, I definitely suggested that he knows what he's doing. So and he gets big films done. So I mean, he's just not my cup of tea. I guess I should probably leave it at that. There's a section in this film that I think is brilliant, and maybe that's what you're talking about. I remember I would say the midpoint is when that train on fire runs through this town. So I guess if I were to say the name Tim Robbins, is that what you're talking about when you say that?
Yes, okay. That is what I'm hinting at.
This film changes. I was not impressed with the setup very much. I wasn't engaged until Tim Robbins hits the screen.
Oh, interesting.
And this is something, I guess we'll go into it a lot, but for me, this is a scene, or let's call it a sequence, because it really is probably, 20 minutes or something like that? It might be 30 minutes. It's ironically, I think this is where Steven Spielberg is really good. He does some of these intense moments that are slow very well, and I think the rest of it, he's obviously capable at the big action things and anything with big themes or incorporating graphics or models or whatnot. But I think he's actually sometimes best in these quiet moments. And the thing that came to mind immediately was the Robert Shaw scene on the boat in Jaws, where he's just scaring the hell out of Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss with this World War II, I think, story about paratroopers dropping into the ocean and just being feasted on by sharks. I mean, that moment in that film is incredible. And I think Tim Robbins brings a certain element to the scene, and that scene where they're stuck in the basement of this crumbling house, that whole sequence is, for me, the best part of the film. So, and it's noticeable. It's a very, very different tone. It's dark. So ironically, I think he does dark. I think of him as a fluffy film director, but he does the dark moments pretty well. And so if you're talking about the third act, that's basically all I want to talk about. But
well, so we may clash over this, because I think that is where that is kind of the cusp of where he starts to lose control of exactly what's going on. I mean, I think as we do try and sort of concentrate on the writing aspect of movies, I think this sort of counts as an extremely classical screenplay. I think it absolutely hits all those commercial cinema notes very, very precisely. This is the sort of screenplay that they should be teaching at UCLA or whatever. That it's kind of obeys all the kind of the simple rules. It has a protagonist with two problems, doesn't it? Like he has an outer problem, which is to get his children to safety, and he has an inner problem, which is he has to become a responsible father, which is what he's not at the start of the movie. And so it sets up, you know who the movie is about, and you know what his problems are, and then the story makes it as hard as possible for him. So every possible obstacle is thrown in his face. He's an active protagonist. He makes these choices. The choices drive the story forward. It covers a lot of ground. It's only, it is only 2 hours. It's just a shade under 2 hours, and you get a lot of stuff happens in 2 hours. I think this film, it probably doesn't do anything tremendously surprising, but I like David Koepp as a screenwriter, and I think this movie, I've written my notes here, this movie is screenwriting 101. It kind of ticks all of the boxes that you're supposed to tick for commercial cinema, and it does it. And maybe it doesn't surprise you, and maybe it's not incredibly innovative, but it's very efficient, I think.
Yeah.
And I think there's a bunch of good performances. I mean, Tom Cruise is he plays his sort of usual Tom Cruise character. They establish kind of early on that he is hyper competent at something, but also that he is an emotionally immature man-child. And that's the material that they play with, and that's the sort of character that Tom Cruise plays very convincingly. There's kind of like there's this early scene. They escape from the tripods. They make it to the wife's house, and it's kind of one of the early downtime scenes in the movie. And Tom Cruise, he wants to provide dinner for his children, and he's just not competent to do it. And he's sort of trying to make them sandwiches, and then he makes the wrong sandwich, and he just can't do it at all. And there's this kind of little scene where he's just staring out the window and saying, "Okay, well, we're just got to hold on for tonight, and tomorrow you'll see your mum, and it'll be okay." And just in his face, you can see he's just about holding it together, but he's also kind of on the verge of tears because he's aware that he's failed and he's not competent, and he's just a very bad dad. A lovely little bit of acting, proper bit of vulnerability. Like there's the scene early on in the movie where he and Dakota Fanning are watching the storm in the back garden, and Dakota Fanning says, "I want to go inside," and he says, "Oh, I can't hurt you." And then there's a big lightning strike, and they say, "Okay, let's go inside." And then he trips over a chair trying to get into the house. And that is the take that they have kept and gone with, that he is being kind of a bit incompetent. He's not a superhero. He's kind of a bit of a bozo. Those lovely little moments. It's that Spielberg thing about it's like Steven Spielberg's working class families, isn't it? It's it's kind of small, chaotic wooden homes, kitchens full of stuff. The TV is always on. It's that kind of family life that he does very well, I think. And then there's a bunch of kind of great sequences throughout the film, which I think are just tremendously skillfully handled. The emergence of the tripod, the big scene with the ferry, the scene where you don't see the aeroplane crashing on the house, but you do see the aftermath. So a lot of kind of really, really very big scenes, which he handles so confidently. He knows what he's doing. Whether you like Spielberg or not, like you say, he's tremendously competent. Yeah. The other thing I always say, whenever we talk about Spielberg, I always say the same thing, and I apologise in advance, but I'm going to say it again. He knows where to put the camera. And there's some great, very skillful bit of direction going on here. He knows just where to put the camera. He's so skillful about knowing where to put the camera that you don't notice that he has put the camera in the right place. It all kind of serves the story. I think he's great. I think it's great until Tim Robbins invites them into the basement. And then suddenly, I think, just like you say, it turns into a different film.
Yes, I think we're going to have a very polite disagreement on this.
Fight.
Yeah, because I also think that he knows where to put a camera, but sometimes he's got to just leave it there. I think he has so many unnecessary camera moves that actually detract from the story. And we've talked about attention a little bit already on this podcast, but he's taking your attention and really focusing it on some things that I think are really trivial or just kind of schlocky. And I'm glad you talked about the first of all, a peanut butter sandwich is always the right sandwich. And those kids are foolish not to eat. I can't even believe that they wouldn't eat in that moment because they haven't done anything in 24 hours but run around burning calories. So, but the camera and that scene ultimately ends up on the window on a peanut butter sandwich that he's thrown against a window. And it's this ridiculous callback from a shot where He's playing catch with Robbie, his son, in the backyard, and Robbie sort of lets the ball go by him. They're arguing, and it just busts a window in their house or maybe someone else's house, and you get this shot of Tom Cruise through a broken hole in a window, and he draws too much attention to these symbols. So the symbolism just is over the top, and I just feel like I'm having themes just stuffed down my throat when I'm watching Steven Spielberg. And it's nice that he's an incompetent dad and you're showing that, but it's overboard. Like, he's using a wooden spoon. He's in this lovely suburban house that belongs to his ex-wife. He uses a wooden spoon to make a peanut butter sandwich. And it's ridiculous. And I think it's over the top. So I think I'll talk about Steven Spielberg as just being unrestrained. I think that's the problem, is he doesn't know when to slow it down. So a lot of those camera moves are just unnecessary. They take our attention to something that he's already brought too much attention to. So at the end of that scene, as he gets frustrated, he throws the peanut butter sandwich against a window, and you get a close-up of the peanut butter sandwich on the window from the other side that we saw the shot through the broken window from the baseball playing. So I think it's just, and this is why I like the scene that we'll talk about, is that it's a bit more restrained. I don't think he has much restraint in his arsenal, but I think it's a much more restrained scene, and I think that's why it makes it good. So I think we're just going to I think we're going to agree that he's competent, and that the film's actually not bad at all. So I'm not going to rave on about its excellence, but I didn't mind watching this film. I was happy to watch it after watching that first War of the Worlds. Anyway, but for me, and I'll start by, again, affirming he's the reason Tom Cruise and Dakota Fanning end up with Tim Robbins is because Tim Robbins is holding a rifle in the air, and that's the introduction to the character. We haven't seen his face yet. And again, it's this kind of ridiculous close-up. There are thousands of people walking across this field, but for some reason, Tim Robbins sort of harkens them over to him, and they're the only ones who pay attention to this guy. And again, it's just kind of this unrestrained moment of this big rifle. And actually, we don't really see the rifle in action thereafter. It's just this sort of flag to bring these targeted characters into the home. But I think this is where the film gets good, and I'll turn it back over to you to tell me why it gets bad there.
So I personally think, for all the screenwriting 101 on Tom Cruise's character, and I think Dakota Fanning as well. Yeah, I think she was 10 when this film was made.
She's amazing.
She's amazing.
The acting is incredible.
She plays a 10-year-old.
Yeah,
and it's like a proper nuanced, layered performance of an anxious, authentic feeling 10-year-old. I mean, one has to slightly worry about Dakota Fanning's life if she's able to portray an anxious 10-year-old quite so convincingly. Yeah. I don't know what kind of life she has had, but when viewed through the lens of the camera, this is a terrific performance. Spielberg has done a lot of his great work with children, with children under the age of 12 or whatever. Absolutely. I mean, he's really good with that. Yeah. So I'll give him his props. Yeah. But on the other hand, I think Robbie, the son, his character is pretty underdeveloped. Yeah, definitely. He's a bit of a sort of grungy rebel, and then he decides he wants to run away and join the army, and it's all feels a bit perfunctory. And I personally feel that Tim Robbins' character is also a bit underdeveloped. There is a kind of a strange hint at some darkness when he is talking to Dakota Fanning on her own. Great moment. On the stairway and saying, well, if your dad dies, I'll look after you. Yeah, love that. And it does make you question, is the reason that he flagged them over because he identified that there was a small girl in the group, and that is what he wants. Yes. So they kind of suggest that. I don't explore it very deeply. But we have what I think is a little bit too much skulking around in the basement, because I feel like we sort of go through the same scene almost 3 times. That we have this alien probe that comes down and looks for them, and they manage to scare it away with a mirror. And then real aliens come down and they manage to avoid them. And then the probe comes back a 3rd time, and I feel like we're going through the same scene 3 times over. And there's not a great deal of story advancement or character development during these scenes. It's just that I feel like we have to kind of get through them. And then Tim Robbins sort of flips a bit and starts digging a hole, and Tom Cruise decides the only way to stop him making noise is to murder him, because that's the only possible solution out of this problem. And it feels to me it's a little bit underdeveloped. Yeah. A little bit like, imagine that almost as if they'd spent a third of the budget on building that basement set, and so they felt obliged to spend 25 minutes down there to justify all that money they had spent.
Yeah.
Although, clearly that's not what happened. So I find Tim Robbins very watchable. I think he is given a little bit of disservice by the script and the superficiality of the character that he is given to portray in this movie. But I can see how, we do often talk about this, restraint is an uncommon delight in a lot of the cinema that we have been offered this century. So to see a little bit of restraint on screen, is a pleasure.
Yeah. It's 20-year-old restraint, so...
Not much of it these days.
Exactly.
Nope.
I think for me, purely my opinion, the Tim Robbins sequence is great, and it's preceded by, I thought, the worst sequence in the film, which is Robbie separating from the family. He's running away from his father just because he wants to see something. He keeps saying, "I just want to see this. I want to see the tripods attacking." It sounds like he wants to participate in the war as well, or he wants to serve. He keeps seeing these military guys go by, and he thinks that's cool, and he wants to get in there and fight them as well. But Ray lets him go, which didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And it was just that he wanted to see. He just keeps saying, "I want to see this. I want to see this." And then at the same time, Dakota Fanning is about to be kidnapped by this couple. And I thought the two setups, and Tom Cruise is sort of torn. The Ray character is in between his son, trying to prevent his son from walking into danger, and just watching this strange couple being very, very determined to take control of Dakota Fanning, or take her away, keep her safe. And it's sort of hyped up. It's a ridiculous scene, but then I think it's immediately followed by that quiet moment with Tim Robbins, which I thought was fantastic. And one of the things that I like is just the darkness. It's such a dark scene. You mentioned the underlying pedo element, which I thought was fantastic and quite subtly done. Tim Robbins gets a good little monologue about how this was planned, that these aliens had buried the seeds or the pods in the earth millions of years ago. They were preparing for this. This is going to be an extermination. It's very dark. And then I agree with you on this weird decision. I'm going to go kill him to keep him quiet so that the aliens don't get us. I think that might have been a little over the top, but that's a really dark moment. I mean, that's not your classic Steven Spielberg or Tom Cruise moment where he has to go into another room, close a door, and murder a man because he's just kind of crazy, he's loud, and maybe he has ideas for Rachel, Ray's daughter there. So it's an uncommon bit of darkness that I thought was really good. And you do, I think importantly, this is the first time you see, I call them the senior gremlins. I don't know what they are exactly, but they live in...
they will be known as that forevermore in our household.
Okay.
The senior gremlins, that's good.
They're like senior gremlins, and we don't see these at all in the other film, and I think that's a problem. And we see them just a little bit. We see that inner working monster just a little bit, and they're curious. I couldn't tell if they were looking for more affordable housing or something like that. They're sort of walking around this farmhouse thinking that they're going to live there. And
just browsing the antiques fair on the weekend. Everyone likes to do that.
I mean, it looks like it's good because you see them a little bit. You almost see them too much, and they seem a little bit incompetent compared to their machinery and all that. But you see them a little bit. And they're introduced in that scene too as well. I definitely agree with that it's too long. It's kind of a long sequence. It's a short film on its own. But I really like what Tim Robbins brought to it. I think it's kind of the most acting for everybody in the film. There's just the darkness. I like it when I think Steven Spielberg does darkness well. I don't think people think of him as doing those dark moments, but we've seen it in Munich. You see it in Jaws. For me, it's his strength. And another irony is that when what was it? Was it called Meet the Fablemans or something with the Fablemans a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
It's very autobiographical, but it's also really, really light and fluffy the whole way through. There's not much darkness in it at all. So when he does all intimate scenes, I think he's actually quite weak. It seems like he normally needs the sort of the summer blockbuster kind of setup and a lot of action in order to make money and feel like he's in his forte. But I think the better moments are the stuff where he goes dark.
Yeah, yeah.
And I that appeals to me more. And so the Tim Robbins character was very welcome because the antagonists are a little unclear here. I mean, I guess they want human blood to operate their machinery or operate their bodies. They need human blood. But, we don't see them very much until they're in the farmhouse. And then at the very end, one of them topples out of the machine when they bring it down, I guess. But so Tim Robbins is also, I think he's the most fearful or fear-inducing antagonist in either of these films. But certainly in this film, I felt more fear for Tim Robbins than I did for the tripods and the senior gremlins.
So after we get this scene of Tim Robbins being murdered behind a closed door, I think this is the moment when people identify that we seem then to step into a different film.
Yeah.
That sort of marks the third act.
Yeah.
And things seem very, very different from that moment on. Suddenly, Tom Cruise, who is unable to make an appropriate sandwich, becomes an action hero with a whole bunch of grenades on a belt.
Yep.
And a quick thinker and a white knight who's going to rescue his daughter. So it's like a big change for him. And we kind of race towards the end of the movie from that scene, really. Yeah. And my big theory, and having watched it again just the other night now, I'm not really sure that this is anything more than just a bit of headcanon from my point of view. Maybe there's nothing in the film really to back it up. But in my mind, Tom Cruise murders Tim Robbins. Yep. They go to sleep. And when we see them open their eyes again, the rest of the movie is just Tom Cruise's dream or fantasy.
Oh.
He has a fantasy now that he is hyper competent, that he is able to blow up a tripod. And then as soon as he's blown a tripod up, we very, very quickly fast forward to entering Boston.
Yeah.
And then Boston is more or less pristine. The aliens are all dying without any human intervention. The war has been won more or less overnight because of bacteria. And he finds the ex-wife's house, and it's immaculate. It's perfect. And everybody in that house is all clean, and they have nice laundered cardigans, and none of the glass is broken. There's just a few autumn leaves blowing around on the street, and there's a sunset, and all the people he's ever met during the course of the film are all alive, and they all give him a big hug, and it feels fantastical and dreamlike. Yeah. And I think in my mind, the end of the film really is the moment when he kills Tim Robbins, and this is the sunset for humanity, and the rest of the movie is a sort of slightly befuddled dream come fantasy of what might have been if Tom Cruise's character were a better man. As it stands, though, I think most people who watch the film, and this is probably right, take those final scenes on face value, and it rather undermines the power that we've seen earlier on.
I like your take very much. I wish it were that way. I don't think it is, but I wish it were, because I think your take is much better than the actual ending. The ending is, it's pretty weak in the sense that everything just turns out peachy keen quite easily, right? Isn't the army's in control of Boston, and Tom Cruise notices that the crows are able to get close to one of these big tripods, and that's because there's no force field or something like that. Like they had force fields around them, but he notices that for some reason their force field is failing. I thought this was and I had to replay it a couple times and put the subtitles on because I couldn't understand what they were saying because they'd never mentioned force field before, and all of a sudden, it's a big deal that the crows can get close to a tripod. Tripod comes down very easily. Ultimately, it seems like all of the tripods all across the globe have been deactivated. One of the senior gremlins drops out of a dying tripod, and we see that we've sort of won the War of the Worlds. So in that sense, you're right. It seems kind of dreamy. Takes Rachel, Dakota Fanning's character, back to Mom. Mom whispers, "Thank you," which I think is just one of my least favorite cliches ultimately. Is that enough gratitude? He's just brought her through wreckage after wreckage, carnage everywhere, and she can't actually put some voice behind her thank you and say thank you. Thank you. And then Robbie's there safely, and as you said, very, very pristine. And you do in that moment see that what a lousy match they were as a couple, because she's obviously, affluent, wealthy Boston, and he's working class New York. So you understand, okay, they were mismatched from the beginning, so it was never going to work, but they had these children that they have to, care for in common. And then we haven't even mentioned Morgan Freeman, who for some reason opens and closes the film with that velvety money in the bank voice. And he tells us, it was actually a microorganism that took out the creatures. You know, we thought it was humans working together, right? We're going to come together and we're going to fight the creatures. No, it's some sort of microorganism. And it's these sort of are the bookend moments is Morgan Freeman and some, the beginning it starts with these like paramecium in space, I think, and then eventually something drops on a leaf and there's this dewdrop where the contamination is. And so you almost feel like, I think they're introducing the microorganism that actually takes out the tripods and the senior gremlins at the beginning, and then we see it at the end, as opposed to it really being a war between the people and the gremlins. It's just ultimately this microorganism that takes them out, which is really a cop-out, I think, at the end.
Yeah.
And, it sort of also just belittles this whole idea that some weird group of aliens had planted these massive, like, boulder eggs in the Earth before the Earth was even probably cooled, and certainly before humans were around, which is an interesting... I don't know if that's in the Wells, because I don't know the H.G. Wells very well at all. But
the aliens and their tripods all arrive in these big cylinders, which are just jettisoned from Mars, and land on the Earth, in Surrey, in fact, just a few miles away from where I'm sitting. I'm not sure why they'd choose there as the place to invent the world from, but presumably in the late 19th century, Surrey was the most important place in the world, so why wouldn't they go there?
Yeah, there you go.
There are some interesting... I mean, it's worth talking about themes for this film. This notion of invasion, they keep coming back to. Early on in the movie, Dakota Fanning has a splinter, and she offers this line, which is, I suppose, supposed to be a momentous reiteration of the theme. She says, my body will push it out when it's ready.
Yeah.
So she kind of seeds this notion that nature will actually take care of invasion without intervention from humans or adults. Yeah. And then they sort of run with that. And in the same way that Robbie early on, he has some homework to do, which is about the French invasion of Algeria. Yeah. And suppose I read an interview with David Kep where he was saying that his idea with Robbie wanting to go and join the army was inspired by him watching footage of kids in Gaza throwing stones at Israeli helicopters. I think so. This idea that you're a kid and you're full of beans and you want to join in and be part of the action. I think that was what he was trying to invoke with those scenes. And then Tim Robbins, he makes this kind of speech where he says, invasions never, or occupations never work. He says, people always come back from underground. So they are trying to lean into this notion of occupation. And certainly that, I think, is what the original H.G. Wells novel is about. It's sort of about the British Empire, really, or critical of the British Empire. Mm-hmm. I mean, at the time, I suppose, the British Empire was probably in pretty full swing in the late 19th century. And largely the way that the Brits dominated the world was by being the first people to build gunships. I don't know whether you've read that book, Exterminate All the Brutes.
Oh.
By...
you're making like Ice Cube and you're using the internet while you're...
It's by Sven Lindqvist, that's it. So I'll edit that, so it sounds like I didn't have to search for it. Exterminate All the Brutes by Sven Lindqvist, which is a book which explains how basically we built gunships which could then moor off the coast of any country that we wanted to take over, and we could just fire enormous shells at the locals until they gave up. And the gunship was moored miles away. No one could touch it. No one could attack. It was completely indefensible. And that was the way that we ended up building an enormous empire, just through sheer blowing force, pummeling people into submission in this very cowardly way out at sea. And that is kind of what they're referring to with this film as well. And that's what the book, I think, was originally about, this notion of being the invaded, being presented with absolutely overwhelming force that you cannot resist, and trying to put your feet in the shoes of the invaded.
Yeah.
There's a lot of glass in this film and mirrors, isn't it? I don't know whether that is always a thing for Spielberg, but like early on we get that image of him breaking the glass with the baseball. And then we just keep going back and back to that again and again and again. There's a guy who's trying to claw his way into the car through the broken windscreen. We're constantly watching the action behind us through the wing mirror.
Yeah.
It's a mirror which protects the family in the basement when the probe is trying to search for them. Lots and lots of glass and mirrors. Tom sees Dakota through this little broken sort of circle in the windshield. When she is kidnapped by the tripod, keeps going back and again to this image. I was trying to figure out, well, what's he trying to say? Is it like a comment about sort of fragility somehow? The idea that we live in a world which is sort of made of glass, it only takes a strong tap and everything shatters. I'm guessing that's what it is, but I wasn't entirely sure that I understood why that was so important to the film.
I think so. I think you got it right on the. You hit it right on the nail. Is that it? Hit the nail on the head. You hit the nail on the head. Don't hit the glass because it will break. It's about I think like a vulnerable form of protection, right? Like you do have this layer of protection, but it's transparent, and at the same time it will break. And I think that's sort of the whole film. It's like, or we're feeling safe. I think even Morgan Freeman talks about this sort of human complacency at the beginning. After you see the dewdrop on the plant, I think we see all these images of people walking around, not suspecting that they were in danger or anything like that. So you get this idea that we are always vulnerable, and there's a lot of glass. Peanut butter on glass. Peanut butter should be in the mouth or in the belly. That's the only place for peanut butter, not glass.
And even like when it's not glass, there's like a lot of the story is told through screens, isn't it? There's the camcorder that this guy drops, and then we watch the tripod emerge through the screen of the camcorder. And even the news crew that he meets, they get him up to date on the state of the world by showing him a little VHS tape of the footage that they've got. It's a lot of the story is sort of mediated through either screens or windows or mirrors. I suppose maybe in the same way that we, the audience, are watching the world through a screen as well. I don't know. Maybe it's just a cute device, but clearly they put a hat on it, don't they? Is that what you say? Put a hat on it, or put a flag on it, or put what's he done? He's done something with it.
But how about a flag and a hat flag, or a hat that says a flag on it?
He's made a hat out of a flag.
There you go.
And then put that flag hat on the mirror.
Perfect.
I
understand exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. I mean, clearly, I enjoyed this film more than you. But it's not a bad film, I think, is it?
It's not a bad film, and I need to acknowledge my biases here. I mean, this is, I'll go into any Spielberger film thinking, oh, am I going to survive it? And normally I survive them. I mean, they're Close Encounters. I love Jaws. I love it. I mean, there's some films that I really like some of his films, and but I just think everything's on the nose. I find them really, really obvious, and the symbolism is just over the top. So, I've got to acknowledge that. So I've got a massive bias. It's definitely watchable. It's not a bad film at all. It's a good film. Tom Cruise, I did not even remotely believe as a dock worker. It just didn't. He does, like, he can't bring that to the film. And I almost felt like the entire reason he's a dock worker is because in that opening scene, seeing him operate that thing is just like a senior gremlin in one of the big tripods. I mean, it just felt like there's a direct connection. He knows how to take these things down because he works in a massive tripod himself. I thought, like, okay, that's the reason. But then he doesn't. Yeah, he does not feel like a New Yorker. He does not feel like a dock worker. There's very little working class. It's funny because he's talking about he won't come back to the job to do extra hours because it's a union violation or something like that. At the very beginning, he puts his union credentials right out there, and he didn't seem that person. So I think that's a hard fit for Tom Cruise. But hey, he sells tickets at the box office. Still, 20 years later, he's still selling tickets.
Yeah, he still does. And it's good to see him do some of his trademark running, even in this film.
Yeah.
He's still running everywhere. Well, 2 films, but only one title. We will try and draw them together, see what the parallels are. But before we do that, as usual, I'm going to force you to play Who Am I?
Who am I?
I'll force you to play Who Am I? Why don't you tell me who you are?
Well, I mean, so I kind of empathize with both of the main characters in this week's film, insofar as I have had plenty of scenarios, even recently, where I have struggled to make dinner for a family when you find that there's no cheese in the fridge. You've got this mental picture, I'm going to cook this for dinner, and then you get down there and you realise, none of the ingredients. And I realise that's entirely my fault.
Yeah.
But I did sympathise with his realisation it's going to be peanut butter sandwiches for tea. I have been very perilously close to that before. And then I did also feel a little bit like Ice Cube, insofar as I freely acknowledge I spend far too much of my time sitting in a chair looking at a laptop.
Oh, yeah.
So I felt like, yep, there I am. I have a bit more grey hair than Ice Cube, but yeah, I'm probably about as active. I'm looking forward to kicking over a chair when the router breaks later on today. Did you see anyone that reminded you of you this week?
I think so. You are both of the protagonists. Is basically what
I am. Yes. What does that say about me? Because neither of them are particularly good people.
Yeah, that's a big week for you.
No doctors, you see. No doctors on screen this week.
I know, and both films could have used some doctors, honestly. I'm Tim Robbins. Harlan Ogilvy, which I thought was maybe a nod to H.G. Wells. It sounds a little bit like H.G. Wells. Harlan Ogilvy, who wants to rebel. He wants to fight the power, but actually he is just rambling nonsense, and he should be silenced. But I think he makes the movie better, despite his many character faults and shortcomings. And I feel like that's kind of my role here at the Two Reel Cinema Club. I'm doing my best to make the films a little bit better while simultaneously exposing what monstrous craps they really are. Especially War of the Worlds 2025 is monstrous crap. And I think we've done that. And I think Tim Robbins sort of does that too here. He definitely brings just an ominous nature to the film. Scary nature. I found him scarier than I found Senior Gremlins even.
Next time we meet up, I'll be able to identify you because you'll be waving a shotgun in the air to try and get my attention. Yep. That's you down to a T.
Over here.
Right, we've threatened to do it. We can't delay anymore. Let's see whether we can bring these two different yet sort of similar films together. So, I kind of hinted at this, like at the beginning of the pod. This, 20 years separates these films, but actually it's only 15 years, I think. Because, or 15 or 16 years, because the new one was shot in 2020 or 2021. But even though only 15 years separates them, they feel to me like they come from really different eras, I think.
Yeah.
Just watching people in 2005 get all their information from TV.
Yeah. Yep.
The news crew are using these VHS tapes. We are 2 years before the advent of the mobile internet, and it's a completely different world.
Yeah.
Dakota Fanning is mouthing off about how she wants TiVo. Who thinks of TiVo these days?
Yeah.
That's someone whose business model is kind of evaporated, isn't it? It's a very different world.
Yeah. There are just a couple of cell phones too in the 2005 film, and they are flip phones.
Yes. And they don't work.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I hear you. They're very different worlds, and it is just 15 years apart. And so much of the 2025 film depends on technology. It depends on having all these computer screens. So that's the other thing is that, and again, I just think there's less imagination in that we see everything, and we have the ability to see everything in the 2025 film, whereas there's definitely some darkness and some stuff that we have to imagine, or the stuff that we don't know in the 2005 version. And I think what we've lost sense of in cinema is how important stuff that we don't know is.
Yeah.
And I've related this to cell phones in the past. I think they've sort of destroyed films and protagonists because you can know anything at any time.
Yeah.
Whereas what we don't know is super important.
It's like you're reading my notes. The big difference is that a lot of the fear in the 2005 version comes from a paucity of information. Yep. There's that scene in the ferry where people are exchanging stories about what they think has happened.
Yeah,
Europe's had it worse.
Yeah.
Oh no, Europe is fine.
Yeah.
I heard this, I heard that. Yeah. Nobody really knows what's going on. People are all moving together to go to somewhere else because they think, well, maybe it's a local problem. Maybe things will be okay in Massachusetts or.
Yeah.
Whereas there's in the 2025 film, there's an excess of information. Everybody has got a camera.
Yeah.
Everyone has an opinion.
Yeah.
Everyone is part of a network.
Absolutely.
It's like there's a scene of like some Twitter footage of the aliens and the human army battling in the 2025 version. And there's all these kind of little hearts and smileys appearing, bubbling up from the bottom of the screen. And it really makes it look like the Martians only came to Earth for the likes.
Yeah.
It's such a different world.
I think, one of the things that's really important is that what we don't know now is, because there's too much out there, there's too much information out there. We know bullshit, right? We know a lot of stuff that's not true. So it's a different type of not knowing. So now we're not knowing because we've got too many unreliable sources and everybody's telling you what they think they know and they're able to broadcast that message. And that's a different kind of not knowing than actually just not having the technology and not having eyes everywhere and having to learn things on your own. And that's the business of a protagonist, is to go from a place of not knowing some stuff to a place of knowing some stuff.
One other thing which is kind of allied to that, I know I've said this probably at least 3 times in the pod. I'm going to say it for a 4th time. Spielberg knows where to put the camera. Mm-hmm. And in 2025, in that movie, well, there kind of is no camera.
Yeah, exactly.
or at least like there's like loads of cameras, but there's no arguing about where to put the camera, because the camera is always in the same place, which is in the character's hands.
Yeah,
that's what all of the cameras are. I mean, there's again, it made me laugh. In the final moments of that 2025 film, Ice Cube has to crawl into the server room to stick his USB stick into the server and save the human race. And he's fighting off these big red sort of limbs that have come out of the tripod or whatever. Yeah. And he's struggling. But all the time that he's doing that, he's still FaceTiming. Yeah. He's still got one hand on his phone and the phone pointed at his face. I was like, come on, Cube, put the phone down. You at least have 2 arms to fight the aliens off. Is it really necessary for you to live stream your final moments as you save the human race? I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? These days, we are very used to the idea of a selfie camera. Such a thing did not exist in 2005. Yeah. And so the selfie's become a sort of shorthand for authenticity in real life. The one thing that... the big failing of that 2025 film is that it has very little authenticity, and yet it has this kind of ersatz for authenticity, this kind of fake authenticity of everything being shot with a selfie camera. Yeah. So it's kind of it's like it wants it and can't have it at the same time.
That's good. Yeah.
But my argument is there is no cinematography in the 2025 film. It's like, I mean, this is part. I got quite philosophical as I made some notes about this. Yeah. Like, one of the big questions of cinema. One of the big questions one might ask is who is holding the camera? Because in classic cinema, God holds the camera. Mm-hmm. The camera is like this all-seeing narrative eye, which doesn't belong to any of the characters. It is an outside force that observes the world, like the all-knowing narrator in a book. Yeah. Whereas in 2025, who holds the camera? It's the audience. Everyone and their sister is a YouTube star now. Yeah. The god of the camera, the god of narrative, has disappeared. Yeah, we are all atheists. We are narrative atheists now. Ooh. That sounds good. I wonder what that means. Doesn't mean anything. Does it?
That is
good. It's not as good as elderly gremlins.
Oh, but no, it's great. It's the new motto for the Two Wheel Cinema Club.
The narrative atheists.
Narrative atheists. I love what you're saying, and I think it relates to a point that struck me, is that both of these films, to a certain extent, are about what we don't want to see. Which is, like, in the 2005 version, Ray's character does not want Rachel or Robbie to see these bodies that are floating by. He does not want them to see the cruelty of humankind. Robbie at one point he's desperately wanting to see things when the tripods are really close to them. And in the 2025 version, it's about, not wanting to know what the government knows, not wanting to know how much the government can see. So it's very much about, like, this, it's sort of willful ignorance, I guess, in some way. Like, there's some secrets we don't want to know. There's some horrors that we don't want to acknowledge, and both of these films on some level talk about what we don't want to see or what we choose not to see at a time in 2025's version anyway of where we can see everything. whether it's true or not, we're gonna get selfie footage of everything. We're gonna see Instagram and Twitter posts about everything that's happening in the world, but there's a lot of stuff we don't want to see ultimately.
Yeah.
I'll give one nod. Well, this will be my last point, probably. One nod to the 2025 film is that I did think that, especially in this day and age, it felt to me more believable that you would bring down the tripods using some kind of virus, not necessarily the virus that his daughter is developing, or using, what do they call it, the cannibal virus or something like that. But using technology on that level to bring down an invader like that, as opposed to the classic, let's get the people together and we'll put a grenade in the belly of this thing and pull Tom Cruise out of this. It's like he was being reborn. I love your idea that was a dream sequence, because it almost feels like he's being reborn out of this. I don't want to call it a tripod uterus, but I think it was a tripod uterus. And anyway, so I thought that was it's one nice possible touch, or maybe one improvement or development from the 2005 film. But they're in many ways they're really not that similar in terms of what the monsters are looking for. And the father journey is very different. One guy's just sitting at his desk the whole time. The other guy's very active. So I mean, I think they're actually very different films, even though they go under the same title. And I guess use the same premise.
I mean, in a way, in both films, the aliens have sort of come to harvest something of humans. Yeah. I read this kind of great theory that the reason that the tripods are buried in ancient history in the 2005 movie is because the aliens' plan was to harvest us like farm animals, but there weren't enough of us when they buried the tripods. So they waited until the human population was big enough and then came down and sort of picked up the harvest, which I think is a cute idea. I don't know whether that is genuinely anything to do with what we really see in the film, but it's a cute idea. Whereas, in the 2025 film, they've come to harvest our data, which the film ludicrously calls humanity's greatest asset or something like that. Which is, I really don't think my Amazon shopping cart data is the greatest asset on the planet. It is interesting to see the difference between who the natural enemy is in these two films. The 2005 version is full of 9/11. They're talking about the terrorists and using that imagery. Whereas in 2025 or 2021 or 2020, whatever, people, I'm surprised how comfortable people seem with the notion that the greatest enemy is your own government. I'm a little bit worried about the future of a world where that is a very kind of contemporary, normal idea. Because I wonder whether this is just another part of fueling mistrust in authority, which then leads to vaccine denial and election denial and chaos. I don't know. I don't know whether this film is contributing to the problem in its own small way.
I can agree with that for sure. And we don't, honestly, in both films, there's this question of showing the bad guy. I think Steven Spielberg sort of breaks his own rule. Like in Jaws, he knows that the monster is not very good looking, and it doesn't really invoke that much fear because it's a big plastic shark or whatever. But he doesn't show it a whole lot. I think in his version of War of the Worlds, he really shows it a lot, and I don't think that's, as I said before, for me that's not the more sinister antagonist. It's definitely Tim Robbins and its humanity and how humanity actually reacts to this whole thing. And then when you finally do see the gremlin, honestly, they look kind of elderly. They don't look that mobile. They're having a hard time moving around, and they're clumsy, and I guess they want human blood. Maybe they're just on this long arc of evolution to get into some better bodies. But and then in the 2025 thing, you see a lot of the monster, but you're not really even aware that you're seeing the monster, because I guess it is, it's the Briggs character, the government in general. And you're right. I mean, I think it shows it a lot. And it's not scary. And you do see the tripods in that film, but I think they're not as scary because they seem so fake. You really, you don't have that many images of them up close. It's always through someone else's phone or from his computer screen. So the way they deal with the antagonist or the monster in both films, I think definitely affects the, who we think of as being the monster and how powerful they actually are.
Who is the real monster? Perhaps the real monster is the friends we made along the way. That's
Yeah.
I think that old Spielberg film, it's on Netflix at the moment, I think still worth tracking down.
Yeah, worth a watch.
Yeah, worth a watch. And the new movie, well, worth a laugh, maybe.
Yes.
Poor Ice Cube. Poor Ava Longoria. We have just got enough time to talk about what else has been playing at this theatre. And I'm interested to know whether you have watched another episode of Walking with Dinosaurs.
I haven't. My passcode was not working for the longest time. Yeah, because I got kicked out. And then I complained, and then they fixed me up right away. Yeah. So all right. But I had this.
Did you kick a chair over?
What's no.
Okay.
No, I had clearance all the way to the computer, and I was able to watch something different. Was the Violent Femmes, band from like the 1980s and 1990s. They did this orchestral version of a lot of their hits with the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra, and that was on PBS. So I did see something on public television. But it was not the dinosaurs, but it's still there. I'm going back to it. I have been on a St. Vincent kick since I saw her, I think, for the last pod, live. And then I decided I'm going to go see The Nowhere Inn, which is a film that she made in, I think, 2020, 2021. Something like that. It's like a movie, inside a documentary, and all three of them are bad. And it's not like she has some concert sequences in there, but not enough. So it doesn't get saved by excellent musical performances as some other, music films often are. And yeah, the acting was bad. Then you're not really sure if they're acting or not because it's a couple of things going on at the same time. So, not good. Go see live music.
Pop stars in movies doesn't always work, does it? Doesn't always work.
How about you? You must have seen something good. You were on holiday.
Last time round, I was trying to persuade you to see Fantastic Four for this pod, and you wisely resisted. So I went to see it so you wouldn't have to. We did go and see Fantastic Four, new Marvel picture. I was really excited. They were my favourite comic characters as a boy. Yeah. So I liked Thor and I liked Iron Man, but I really liked Fantastic Four. Yeah. And they was always the first comic that I would read when it came through the letterbox. But sadly, this film, Fantastic Four: First Steps, not very good. Very disappointing actually. And the production design is fun. It looks good. But they make this kind of one really simple error, which is just not very much happens. It's made by someone who is a TV director, and I think it's written by Josh Friedman, who also wrote the story for War of the Worlds this year. 2005. Yeah. So it does have a connection to the pod, but basically you can summarize the whole story in 3 sentences. And not miss anything out. I tried this as an experiment. People who don't want to be spoiled on Fantastic Four, flick forward by literally 15 seconds because I'm going to tell you the whole story. Okay. So this is the story. The Fantastic Four are a superhero team who guard the Earth until the Silver Surfer arrives and tells them Galactus is coming. They go to see Galactus, who says he won't eat the Earth if they give him their baby son, but they refuse. That's 2 sentences. Instead, they try to teleport the Earth somewhere else, and when that fails, Galactus turns up and they kick him into a hole. And that is the whole movie. That is the whole film. There's barely anything in the way of subplots. Wow. There's just about enough story for a 1-hour TV show, but just not enough for a 2-hour movie. I'm really surprised by the lack of ambition. Just so little happens in it. And I have a secret thought, which is that I don't know what your opinion is. Pedro Pascal seems like a lovely man. Yes. And I find him very watchable and very engaging, but I don't think he's much of an actor. Oh. I think he just seems like a really nice guy that we like watching, but I don't think I've ever been quite convinced by anything I've seen him do on screen. He just seems like this nice guy that I enjoy watching, but I'm not really sure that he's an actor.
He's everywhere right now, though.
He is everywhere. I'll show you how disappointing it is, right? So he plays Reed Richards, and his superpower is his body can be stretched into any shape.
Ooh.
So he's incredibly stretchy. It's this stretchy man. And so Galactus, the big bad, turns up, and he tries to kill Reed Richards by stretching him.
Ah.
You kind of think he's the one person in the universe who can be stretched as much as you like. That's a ludicrous way to try and kill him. There's another character called the Human Torch who is like, he's made of fire.
Oh.
And I bet Galactus would try to burn him to death. I mean, he's literally made of fire. What are you doing?
Galactus has to do his research first. You just Google it. Google it.
Couldn't even be bothered to do the smallest amount of homework before he turned up. Honestly, supervillains of these days, eh? Mm-hmm. What are they like? Mm-hmm. On Instagram, we are at 2 Real Cinema Club. We are the same on BlueSky. Comment on our YouTube channel or read the blog 2realcinemaclub.com. Let us know what you think. Ask us questions. Next time, we will be back with...
We're coming with weapons.
We are coming with weapons.
We're going to have knives, forks, bazooki, cannons...
A rolled up newspaper and a bad attitude. We'll be watching Weapons, and we're going to be comparing it to a film which I've never seen, The City of Lost Children from 96, I want to say.
96, yeah.
Very exciting. Yeah. 2 films I have never seen. Looking forward to that. Until then, watch the skies, I suppose. Yeah. That was a different Spielberg film.
Eyes on the skies and eyes into the mantle and outer crust of the earth.
yes, eyes on the ground, people. Thanks for joining us as always. Sleep safe in your bed knowing that Ice Cube is watching you, whatever you're doing. We will see you next time.
Goodbye.